Welcome to Resilience Unravelled. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Thackeray. This podcast is a result of my fascination with health issues, resilience, performance, mental health, accountability and critical thinking, along with many of the other obsessions I bump into in my life. I spend my time working with highly successful teams, organisations and people, and this podcast introduces their remarkable stories, as well as my synthesis of the key issues, tips and strategies to thrive in life. If you find this podcast useful, you can also find other information at qedod.com or russellthackeray.com. Stay tuned to the end for details of how to order a free ebook. Enjoy the podcast. So today I'm talking to Nicky Irvin. And Nicky is somewhere exotic, somewhere glamorous, somewhere amazing. Where are you, Nicky?
I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm actually a New Zealander, but I'm living here in Florida at the moment.
So how come, that's almost the opposite side of the world, isn't it? How come a Kiwi, that's right, is living in Jacksonville, of all places? Isn't that where all the oranges come from or something?
Oh, totally. They totally are. I'm actually here with my husband. He's being posted here with the Royal Air Force. So we're here for a 4-year posting and we're halfway through.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How interesting. So what is it that you do?
Well, what I do is, I guess I'm an author and I'm a creator of a program called Empowering Me. Okay. And what I do in Empowering Me is help carers, families who have loved ones with disability or challenge, or they may be called special needs, just to help them find their purpose in life. Not only the child or the loved one, but also the parents, because the parents get lost along the way.
Yeah.
Especially when they're caring 24/7 for their child.
It's that old thing about who cares for the carer. It's
Yes.
It's unappreciated sometimes, isn't it?
Oh yes, and I think you are so focused, and I'm speaking from direct experience here. So focused on your child that you forget about yourself.
So tell me how you got into this thing.
This thing, it really goes back about two decades when my son was born, or actually not long after, and he contracted bacterial meningitis.
Right.
And in that moment, my life just 360 and roundabout and ended 180 somewhere else. Yeah. And I became totally focused on him, and what I was doing was trying to fix him.
Right, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I went into the crusade of fix-a-mother mode, super mum.
Yeah.
And I spent all my time and energy there. And it took me all over the world, and it took me right into the deepest part of my heart and soul.
Right. It must be. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's been, like I said, 2 decades of, I guess, navigating my way back to me.
Right.
I guess that's why I've called the program Empowering Me. It's about helping others find themselves again, so that then they are fully resourced, so that they can then help their loved one fully.
Because it's interesting, isn't it? We do live our lives as a series of roles, almost, don't we? That's, you're sort of individual, then you become a partner, then you become a wife, and then you become a mother. And I suppose that's all sort of part of the script in a way. But it seems, I suppose you're not meant to be a carer at such an early age in that sense.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I guess I tried to do them all.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm tried, and I didn't succeed, really, to be honest, in a lot of ways. I suffered in my first marriage, and we both went our separate ways. And fortunately, we can come back, and we get on well now. But I lost me. A friend said to me some time ago, "Well, where are you, Nicky?" And it's like, actually, it was quite a profound question. It was like, where are you? And it's like, somewhere in here I am. But yeah, I guess it's taken time time to reflect, time to soul search, time to just find my way back to me. I think that's the only way I can really put it.
And do you find that? And are you coming back to you? Or are you inventing a new you? How does that work?
I think as a child, we're probably all born with all this potential, and then through life, different trauma, conditioning of society, our parents, that comes into play. And I guess we get, what happened with me is I stopped certain emotions. I didn't want to feel emotion, and I guess the saying that was always said to me as a child was, "Oh, you'll be okay. Just get on with it," And so, and indeed, and indeed, that's what I did. I just got on with it, and I guess there was a whole lot of different things that were stored within me that I hadn't allowed to be expressed.
So that's interesting. So when we talk about resilience and what you're going through, that's a common phrase. Do you think it has any usefulness, that sort of get over yourself, toughen up type thing? I'm just interested.
Well, I see it. I mean, it got me through my childhood, I suppose, in some respects.
Yeah.
But I've had to deal with it. I've had to actually feel those emotions. So, sorry, this is a roundabout way to say probably not.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, probably not for me in my circumstances. But then in saying that, Russell, I am where I am today because of those experiences.
Yes.
So I don't regret any of it. I don't hold any blame for anyone, or I've got peace. I've come to peace with all what happened. So I feel it's all part of me.
So is that all part of? So you've described, closing down your emotions, all that sort of stuff. Is that all part of becoming resilient enough to cope with what's going on? Were there any other strategies you used? Or is it literally, are you sort of making it up as you go along almost?
Well, you know what? That's a bit like that, Russell, for me. I tend to test the waters. And certainly, like Thomas, if I go back to Thomas, when he got the bacterial meningitis, the doctor said to me, "Look, best you don't worry about Thomas, move on with your next child."
Oh, wow.
And not quite in those words, but that was the feeling. And it was like, wow, no one's going to tell me that that's the scenario or the outcome for my young son. So that's when I can do anything. I'll turn this into a positive type person. The half full girl, the half full glass came into action and wanted to prove them wrong in a way.
And I suppose you have to model that for your son, don't you? You've got to model that sort of optimism and that positivity. Otherwise, they can be brought down as well, can't they? Well,
true. And I mean, Thomas is he communicates in a very different way. So he's not sitting here telling me in words. He tells me in his emotions and his behaviours, and mainly his emotion and behaviours. And he's now got another way of communicating, which is through oracle cards. So he can't speak other than a few single words. Yeah. So I guess I've always had that. I guess it's the hope, the faith that anything I go through is for learning or for betterment of myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've obviously gone through a cycle, but you've been working and doing things all this time. You have been actually Superwoman almost, haven't you? So you built a career as well, haven't you? And obviously built on the experiences that you're taking part in, I suppose.
Yes, I mean, initially I trained as an accountant and found, I enjoyed it to a certain extent, but there was one time when someone said to me, "Oh, Nicky, what do you really want to do?" And it was Yeah, okay. You can feel my heart and soul's not really in here, but I mean, it was good for me. It got me into Asia and different places and enjoyed that. But then, the universe had another idea for me when Thomas got his meningitis, and that's when the world turns upside down for me.
And I think it's fascinating now, isn't it? Because I mean, you speak very effortlessly about this idea of actually having more than one career. Because you've been a mum, then you've been a carer, and then you've obviously, I'm guessing the caring thing's not going to go away in a hurry. But you're also now an author and such like. And it probably when you thought back all those years ago, that wasn't the way you were constructing your life at the beginning. And there's a lot of talk, isn't there, about having a plan and having a goal and having aims. But life has a nasty habit of sort of rearing its head, I suppose, isn't it?
Oh, totally agree. I 100% agree. I mean, look, I was that young girl that was very ambitious, wanted to do extremely well in finance and accounting and the likes. Yes, couldn't wait to be married, couldn't wait to have children. Yes, and in New Zealand we talk about the house with the white picket fence, the 2+4 children.
2+4.
Oh, sorry, 2 plus. No, sorry. Let me get that right. 2.4 child.
Oh yeah. We have the same thing over here.
But yeah, so we talked about that, and that was indeed my aspiration for life. And you'd happily set up into the sunset, and your children become global, educated young people, and they would contribute in the world. And so that was the dream I had until that time when Thomas got ill, and that was shattered.
Yes.
And
a lot of people describe they use that word shattered, don't they? Everything almost shatters in that 1 second, and then it's a process of rebuilding.
Yeah, and I mean that.
So how do you begin that?
By breathing.
Right. Okay.
I went back to the simplicity of breathing, and actually learning how to breathe properly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that sounds so silly in a way, but because we do it automatically, but I needed to learn to breathe out. Yeah, because I used to take very shallow breaths.
Yeah.
So I needed to learn how to breathe out and actually take time for myself.
Yes.
And, now I have the practice of, daily meditation and prayer and walk in nature and, journal, writing in my journal. So that way I've got to a place where I'm comfortable. I'm not comfortable. I'm joyous in life. I'm actually really enjoying life now. And yes, I can have that even though my son isn't here with me. He's forging independence for himself in the way he can.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah, he has other carers and support workers with him.
Yeah.
But, I have long arms from Florida to New Zealand. Yeah. I'm able to support, but just in a different way than I was.
Yeah, and I suppose he's technically an adult now, so he's able to access different forms of support and care.
Yes, and I mean will always be guided by someone like myself, because there's a way he knows his rights, but he can't communicate them clearly to people. And fortunately, we have some wonderful people there, caring and supporting him and empowering him. Indeed, yeah.
And so you've talked about journaling and meditation and breathing and such like, and all those complementary techniques add to, I mean, they're all quite modern, aren't they? But they sort of add to the toolkit, don't they? So how did you begin to bump into those sorts of ideas?
Well, look, it really went back to, and actually I've just been writing about it today, so how fortuitous. Really, one day in Hong Kong, I was walking along the street in Hong Kong, very busy, and I just didn't collapse, but I just started to cry. Right. And I didn't know why, couldn't stop it, couldn't hide, couldn't do anything. And so I found my way to a natural health practitioner. And she said to me, physically you're okay, but we need to look a bit at this, and this. But I really think you need to start looking into your mental, emotional, and spiritual health.
Yes.
And that's really where it started. And I just started my search.
Yeah.
And I could probably say I'm a searcher, I'm a seeker, my mind is busy, always wanting to try and find new things. And so that's what I did.
And a lot of people talk about the mental and the emotional side, but very rarely talk so candidly about the spiritual side. So could you talk a bit more about that?
Well, like I said, I think I said earlier, was that I felt, I'm a half full girl, glass. I always felt that something had my back. I went to a Christian boarding school. I knew God as a person.
Yeah.
But then I started looking at other avenues. And so, and sort of, I just reading different books, different masters out there, and reading what resonated with me. What does this feel true to me? No, next thing, move on. But really, it's just come back to the belief that I have that there is someone, something, a universe, a divine presence, angel looking after me, and knowing that all will be okay, and actually all is okay.
So
right?
That idea of something bigger than yourself in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a plan that I even, on my mind, I could try and plan, which I did. I planned this lovely life for myself and my 2.4 children. But my plan wasn't the plan.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because I think people undervalue the spiritual side, and people can get very bent out of shape about whether that's organized religion or just this idea of something else. And I really don't see any problem with this idea that people can have a spirituality about them. And we know that prayer and meditation are awfully similar things when you look at them, really, aren't they? And
well, from my perspective, they are. I guess some people may argue on that point, but for me, that's the intention I have each day, is to be in that space, that contemplative space where it's just for me with the universe, me with God, me with divine, whoever that person, that presence is. And so for me, it's super important.
And it's interesting as well, because one of the most frequently used things in positive psychology and things is the idea of gratitude, which of course is at the heart of prayer, isn't it? So it is interesting how people get quite so tortured about this idea without realizing the sort of irony of using these modern techniques, but actually some of them are pretty embedded and in our culture, our psyche going back thousands of years.
Oh, totally agree with that. I mean, just that simple practice of having gratitude for Thomas being with me, and just the sunshine and all those things. Gosh, it opens your heart, doesn't it? It just opens your heart, and more willing to share. I think what we need really is more people sharing their vulnerabilities and what's happening for them.
Yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable and such like, isn't it? And obviously you've written a book, and that's great. What led you to the idea that writing a book would be useful? What was your sort of motivation for it?
Well, actually, the day, the weeks after when Thomas was ill, I went searching, and so that mind of me went searching for a book, and all I got was negative stuff out there. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be an empowering journey. And indeed, it is a journey for me. I mean, it took 15 years, would you believe, to write my first book. And indeed, I was blocked writing, really, because actually it went back to my childhood when someone said, no, you're not a writer, Nicky. And so it's taking me time to get over that. But so in those 15 years, it was a labor of love, really. But I wanted to get some positive feedback out there. There are triumphs within raising a young man with disability.
Yes,
it's hard. Yes, you're driven to the depths, and yet there's simple joys, and that's what he really taught me, is to celebrate those small things. Those, Thomas, couldn't walk at a time, and he was able to get out of bed and wake me up in the night. Now, most people would be annoyed with that, but for me, that was a simple, highlight, and his hemiplegia down one side, and he'd give me a two-armed hug, and just those precious moments. And so I wanted to get that out there. And actually, the book, Trust Life's Journey, is very raw. The books that are in process now come from a more joyous space. So, but they are real as well. I can talk about these dark days, but knowing that there are light days.
Yes, and that's the point, isn't it? And I suppose when you were looking for those books in the first place, it was all about dark days. It was probably very mechanistic and how you access things. But there's an emotional journey you're going as any carer of any age, a parent or a child, and so you said that. So I guess part of writing the book is cathartic, so it's useful for other people. It's great for you. And was this the beginning of the journey of finding yourself again then?
Yes. Indeed it was.
So do you find yourself afterwards? Sorry, was finding yourself part of it, or did it come from it? Did one liberate the other?
It probably did. It was part of the journey. It was all one liberate. It was each moment. Each moment has allowed me to be more of me, and therefore liberated the next. So, the analogy of an onion, peeling back the onion layer. So I pieces were falling out as I had the courage, I guess, to expose certain vulnerabilities that I had. The fear of not being a good mum, the fear of Thomas being lost to the world of medicine. Just lots of things. As the onion peeled back, there's that juicy bit in the middle.
But the reason I'm thinking about that is that we've had guests on before who've talked about the power of journaling. And you mentioned it, but also writing is part of the journaling. And often authors have written because they've journaled, and vice versa. And so you obviously found the writing process itself useful as part of finding yourself.
Oh, totally. And sometimes I'm totally surprised by what comes out. But I've recently learned a new technique, and it's really about writing fast with certain music. And my goodness, it's quite incredible, the process of allowing those deeper words, those deeper, more vulnerable words to be shared. Yeah. So that's in process now.
That's another book, no doubt, is it?
Oh, well, there's 3, would you believe? I mean, it's crazy, really, but they're short and concise. They're not big novels. They're just, And
so if there's people out there who want to get their hands on your words of wisdom and, a really interesting perspective on this journey, I'm looking at the site called trustlifesjourney.com. Is that the best place to start?
Well, it's one place to start, but probably the best place to start is my website called nicolairvine.com.
Okay, so that's IRVINE.com.
Yes.
Very good. And obviously you've got 2 books that I can see, Trust Life's Journey and Communication His Way. Yes. And you say you have more on the stocks.
Well, yes, they're being reviewed at the moment. So I'm in my review process of them. And so hopefully next year, maybe one by the end of the year, but yeah.
And so a person reading these books will get a balanced sort of view of a journey, practical tips and helps as well, perhaps?
Yes, there's definitely some tips in there. So certainly there's been some very transformational tools that I've learned along the way that have helped me. And indeed, I want others to be helped by. So so certainly within that, there is those tools. Yeah.
And there's more clues on how you reconnect with your own self, I'm guessing as well. Is that right? Oh, the real you.
Yeah, the real you. Yes, get back into it. And to be able to live with joy, just to be in this moment, which is quite joyous. Yeah.
Yes. That's really interesting. One of my relatives is experiencing something similar, but with an older parent. But I will point her in the direction of this book, because I think a lot of it will echo with her. But she's I think that's the point that you were at, where you struggle on your own, and it's nice to have It's nice to have a voice that you can recognise has actually experienced these things for themselves and isn't just complaining about it, but saying, actually, there are gains and losses on both sides of the equation, aren't there?
Oh, indeed. Exactly. I mean, for me, I found out, the poor me syndrome wasn't going to work for me. So I needed to get out and do something.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, along the way, I've worked with friends and family, and they've supported me and some of the way. But a lot of it has been self exploration. Yeah.
Obviously a remarkable person.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very kind.
Well, look, thank you so much. It's been really inspirational, and I think it's really unusual because actually you've got to deal with your own resilience. You've got to build your son's resilience. And I think it's absolutely fascinating, the idea of how you've recreated yourself as as an author. I think it's really inspirational. So thank you really so much for spending time with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, Russell. Thank you very much for the invitation.
You take care.
We hope you found today's podcast useful. If you did, why not subscribe and listen to our other podcasts? We would love it if you could leave us a review. To access our resilience coaching, contact us at info@qedod.com. And finally, if you'd like to download our free resilience ebook, go to qedod.com/free ebook. Thanks for listening.